everyone. You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, broadcasting from our studio in Edmonton, Canada. It's Monday, July the 12th, 2021, on this side of the world. And a good Tuesday morning, magandang umaga, to our viewers in the Philippines. In the news, we have updates from several of our correspondents from across North America. Mila Simbulan in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania.
Over $4 million helping local restaurants in Berks County here in Pennsylvania with pandemic recovery.
Mayan Manzano Gerzon in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
New Jersey awards nearly $30 million to post-secondary students.
Jane Kathleen Gregorio in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Texas governor issues directives to improve the power grid, and Governor Abbott welcomes Miss Wheelchair Texas to the state capitol.
Ron Hamilton will tell us how a storm on the sun will affect us here on Earth. We'll hear from Bobby Soriano, who's at the business desk. For ABC Food, Elisa Castro shares a recipe for jute saluyot adobo. Plus, for tonight's roundtable, using paper bags for sustainability. Our coverage begins now. At the top of the news, the western United States and Canada continue to bake in an unrelenting heat wave. As well as the heat, wildfires range out of control in both countries. In southern Oregon, firefighters are trying to tame the flames of a fire that more than tripled in size over the weekend. And fires continue to grow in Northern California as flames devour dried out forests. There are fears that these infernos could spread to the southern parts of the state as forecasters warn of dropping humidity and gusting winds. There are reports of homes being destroyed in several towns. People are being urged to stay away from these areas. How does this look from space? Well, what you see here on the screen is a shot of the west coast of the United States. You can see the smoke plumes from these fires and watch as they drift across the region. Near Los Angeles, firefighters have an unusual ally in the battle against the flames. In a preventive measure, goats are being used to prevent fires from being sparked near urban areas. As you can see here, they're eating vegetation in a suburban Los Angeles grazing area. Fire Marshal Jeffrey Ragusa says the grazing reduces the fire hazard.
Our goal for us is to create a defensible space. It's to basically create a buffer. And that's twofold. That's one, to prevent the spread of wildfire from the wildland interface to a structure. And it's also to be able to provide enough defensible space, buffer around it for us as firefighters to come in during an event and actually protect the homes in a safer environment.
And there's bad weather of a different sort headed our way. A solar storm has sent out a flare that's headed to Earth, and get this, at a speed of 1.6 million kilometers an hour. It's expected to hit the Earth's magnetic field sometime today. As Eagle News correspondent Ron Hamilton tells us, the solar flare could disrupt various communications platforms.
Most of us who use mobile devices will need to be patient in the next day or two, as a solar flare is due to hit the Earth and is expected to disrupt both cellular and radio signals. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory captured this latest event and was immediately classified as an X-class eruption, the most powerful type of solar flare. This latest phenomenon is the biggest of its kind since 2017, when an X 8.2 event was recorded. Solar flares are large eruptions of electromagnetic radiation from the sun, lasting from minutes to hours. The sudden outburst of electromagnetic energy travels at the speed of light. Therefore, any effect upon the sunlit side of the Earth's exposed outer atmosphere occurs at the same exact time if the event is observed. The increased level of X-ray and extreme ultraviolet radiation results in ionization in the lower layers of the ionosphere on the sunlit side of the Earth, causing high-frequency radio signals to become degraded or completely absorbed. This results in a radio blackout, the absence of HF communication, primarily impacting the 3 to 30 megahertz band. Solar flares usually take place in active regions, which are areas of the sun marked by the presence of strong magnetic fields, typically associated with sunspot groups. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, this is Ron Hamilton with Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
The COVID file now. Today, Pfizer met with American health officials to promote booster shots for its vaccine. And that has the head of the World Health Organization concerned. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says now is not the time for developed countries to be promoting a third shot.
The gap in vaccine supply is hugely uneven and inequitable. Some countries and regions are actually ordering millions of booster doses before other countries have had supplies to vaccinate their health workers and most vulnerable.
And what about the current situation? Well, Ghebreyesus says he's not happy. He says he's worried about the current COVID numbers that he's seeing.
Last week marked the fourth consecutive week of increasing cases of COVID-19 globally, with increases recorded in all but one of WHO's 6 regions. And after 10 weeks of declines, deaths are increasing again. We continue to hear reports from all regions of the world about hospitals reaching capacity.
And you know, now as many of us get back to normal, as developed countries begin throwing off restrictions, the head of the WHO's Health Emergencies Program has this warning. Michael Ryan says celebrations in the UK and Europe are undermining public health efforts in developing countries.
And it's more difficult for governments in those situations in those countries to continue to implement public health and social measures because their populations are looking at this and saying, hey, it's all over in Europe. I mean, maybe it's all over here.
But the UK has no plans of slowing down its reopening. 1 week from today, that country will ease most of its COVID restrictions. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says, yeah, I know there's going to be consequences.
We know we're going to see more hospitalizations and more deaths from COVID. But we also know that this wave was clearly foreseen by our scientists when we first set out that roadmap in February.
Let's look at today's COVID-19 numbers now, provided by the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University in Medicine. As of 6 p.m. Eastern Time today, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide now at more than 187,092,000. Top 3 on the list of countries with recorded cases: the United States, more than 33.8 million; India, more than 30.8 million; and Brazil has more than 19 million cases reported since the pandemic began. Now, sadly, more than 4,035,000 lives worldwide have been lost to this virus. The top 3 countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths are the United States, more than 607,000, Brazil, more than 533,000, India. The virus has claimed more than 408,000 lives. The number of COVID vaccine doses administered worldwide, now more than 3,460,000,000. Well, they've had enough, and they're not going to take it anymore. Farmers in the region of Arroyo de Rosales, along Mexico's west coast, have taken up arms against drug traffickers. To keep the bad guys out, a convoy of members of the self-defense group Pueblos Unidos travels through plantations in the regions. They maintain checkpoints and have put up stone trenches. Armed with rifles, they travel the area and pick up trucks. The hooded men claim to be avocado growers. They say they're just fed up with the violence from the drug trade. The streets of Havana calmed today after thousands of people protested on the weekend against the communist government in Cuba. Now, this was the scene yesterday. The anti-government rallies started spontaneously in several cities. They come as the country endures its worst economic crisis in 30 years. A crisis marked by shortages of electricity, shortages of food. Police used tear gas to disperse the crowds. As they gathered outside the Capitol building, the protesters chanted, "We want liberty." Government supporters also held some counter demonstrations. Meantime, in Miami, Florida, thousands of Cubans and Cuban Americans took to the streets in support of the protesters. And today, U.S. President Joe Biden weighed in on the demonstrations.
I want to start by recognizing the remarkable protests that are taking place in Cuba, with the Cuban people demanding their freedom from an authoritarian regime. And I don't think we've seen anything like this protest in a long, long time, if quite frankly ever. The United States stands firmly with the people of Cuba as they assert their universal rights. And we call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence, their attempts to silence the voice of the people of Cuba.
South Africa now, where the violence is plaguing at least 2 provinces, including Johannesburg. The unrest has been sparked by the arrest of the country's ex-president, Jacob Zuma. 6 people have died during the rioting. There's been widespread looting. The military has been dispatched to aid overwhelmed local police. Mobs have ransacked stores. They're carting away everything from boxes of alcohol to beds, refrigerators, and bathtubs. The looting is likely also linked to growing frustrations around hunger, poverty, and unemployment. Zuma has been sentenced to 15 months in jail for not cooperating with a probe into corruption during his 9 years in office. Well, a scary moment for this guy. Bob Brandon was wheeling his garbage bin back up the driveway of his home in Springfield, Massachusetts the other day. Now, there's no indication that anything's out of the ordinary. But watch this. Watch what happens next as a lightning bolt narrowly misses him. I'd be running too. Bob is one fortunate man. Well, next time you're in Tokyo and you're looking for a great background for a selfie, you might want to try the city's Shinjuku shopping district. Up on a 4K billboard, a 3D cat has been displayed to greet people. Many passersby think it's real. And can you blame them? Look at this. This feline looks so realistic, it moves. And people don't miss the opportunity to take photos of it. These 2 students, well, they say they're impressed by this whole thing.
It's really cute. Yeah, it's so cute. It actually looks really real. And I feel like when you look at social media and like the difference, it's like really pretty, and yeah, I feel like that's really cute. Bigger too.
I'm impressed too. Let's take another look at that cat. What a cool cat. Got to see more of them before we leave this story. Up next, we have stories from Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Eagle News America continues.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
everyone. You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, broadcasting from our studio in Edmonton, Canada. It's Monday, July the 12th, 2021, on this side of the world. And a good Tuesday morning, magandang umaga, to our viewers in the Philippines. In the news, we have updates from several of our correspondents from across North America. Mila Simbulan in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania.
Over $4 million helping local restaurants in Berks County here in Pennsylvania with pandemic recovery.
Mayan Manzano Gerzon in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
New Jersey awards nearly $30 million to post-secondary students.
Jane Kathleen Gregorio in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Texas governor issues directives.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Thomas I. Likeness. Well, restaurants have been particularly hard hit by the pandemic, and many still trying to recover. Eagle News Pennsylvania Bureau Chief Mila Simbulan joins us now to tell us about some of the assistance that eateries in Berks County are receiving. Mila, tell us more.
That's right, Thomas. So last year, Governor Tom Wolf secured $145 million in funding to support businesses adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Since then, the Commonwealth has worked with counties and economic development partners to quickly send assistance to the hospitality industry. Here's Berks County Commissioner Michael Rivera. Take a look.
Of dealing with the CHIRP, the money that has gone out to these restaurants and hotels and other businesses in the hospitality industry has been just great. These businesses most of them are small businesses. They're family owned. They're owned by locals here in our area. And my other two colleagues and I, Commissioner Leinbach here is with me, we went out personally to hand deliver some of these checks. And the stories that we heard from many of them were just so heartwarming. Many of them even started crying while we were handing out the checks because they said, you know what? Without this money, we would not have been able to remain open. Without this money, we would not be in business today. So it was really, really heartwarming to be able to get out there and reach out to those business owners and be able to offer this grant to them.
The Wolf administration secured a transfer of $145 million to be appropriated by the state legislature into grants for businesses under the CHIRP program, or what we call COVID-19 Hospitality Industry Recovery Program. Since the governor made the funding available earlier this year, the state has worked with counties and economic development partners to quickly send assistance to the hospitality industry. Counties are administering the funding through one or more designated community economic development organizations, or what we call CDO, or community development financial institutions, or CDFI, which began processing applications from businesses in each county on March 15. Funding must be provided to businesses by July 15, 2021. The Greater Berks Development Fund, the CEDO, appointed by the Berks County Commissioners to administer the program, received more than 200 applications and has dispersed more than $4.2 million of the county's $4.7 million in available funding to date. Let's take a look.
When the pandemic hit, we really didn't know how to deal. I think no one did. We didn't know what to anticipate, how to prepare, how to react. But we're so grateful to all the entities that combined all the resources and provided us with the necessary funding so that we can stay afloat. There's still challenges, but you know what? We do persevere, because of people like everyone in this room who care and who support, because it does take community to be able to work together collaboratively to rise, right? And to keep pushing forward. So again, thank you. This is truly my home, our home. This is also your home. Again, thank you for.
So that's the owner of the restaurant called Mi Casa Su Casa in Berks County. And under the program, Mi Casa Su Casa received $15,000 and the Peanut Bar restaurant received $35,000. Both businesses will use the funds to cover financial obligations incurred as a result of the pandemic. Thomas, for a quick weather update, there's a flash flood warning here in my area, and it is currently 77 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius. In Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, Milo Symbol, and Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Milo, before we proceed on with, I have a couple of questions about your report. You're not in any danger from that flash flood warning. Hopefully you're far enough away from it.
No, actually, it started raining this afternoon a couple of hours ago, and it wasn't that bad. We've been getting that every now and then, especially this time of the year. But thank you for asking.
Send some this way. We badly need it in the West. Anyway, who is eligible to receive the state funding, and how is that funding to restaurants distributed?
So, Thomas, any Pennsylvania county is eligible, and funding is distributed based on population. So, for example, Philadelphia. Philadelphia is the biggest county here in Pennsylvania, so it has allotted 17 million, while Delaware County, the county where I'm at, is allotted only 6.4 million. Thomas?
Tell us about the COVID Hospitality Industry Recovery Program. I think that's also known as CHIRP.
Yes, so on February of this year, Governor Tom Wolf signed into law legislation that will set aside this $145 million in funds to aid hospitality industry businesses adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And specifically, the program requires counties to establish grant programs for eligible businesses. And this initiative is known as the COVID-19 Hospitality Industry Recovery Program, what you call CHIRP. Thomas?
Okay, you live in Pennsylvania. How do you think you can help the hospitality industry?
So as a resident of Pennsylvania, although me and my family, we don't usually go out to eat. We like eating here at home, but then just to support, especially our favorite restaurants here in my area, just to support them, we now, at least once a week, we go to those type of restaurants, especially the small businesses one, and try to, either dine in or do take out, so that we can support them. We can support all those local restaurants.
You know, and that's important, because those local restaurants, Mila, they're mom and pop businesses. They're people who live in your neighborhood. They're people who pay taxes in your community. They're not part of some big chain. They're people struggling to make a living, to support their family. And I think it's great that the state has come up with some assistance, and hopefully they can survive what's been really a tough year and a half for them. Thanks for joining us, Mila. Oh, and do stick around. We're going to be talking about paper bags. Paper bags at the round table. Bring your best.
Yes, we'll be there.
Okay. There's millions of dollars in aid in New Jersey for post-secondary students, and standing by with the details on that story, EBC's Mayan Manzano-Gerzon. Welcome to the program, Mayan.
Thank you, Thomas. So today, Governor Phil Murphy and Secretary of Higher Education, Dr. Brian Bridges, announced the awardees of nearly $30 million in federal funding that will be distributed to New Jersey institutions of higher education to support the core priorities of the state plan for higher education and address the impacts of COVID-19 on post-secondary students. Take a look.
Our colleges and universities. Today, we are announcing nearly $30 million in additional federal supports to help our higher education sector weather the impacts of COVID on its core missions. The bulk of this funding, about $28.5 million, is headed out to nearly 36 colleges and universities in support of the office's Opportunity Meets Innovation Challenge, which is a competitive grant program. Through this program, institutions will use their grant awards to implement best administrative practices to college-wide reforms with an eye to ensuring their own long-term resiliency against future challenges. More importantly, these reforms and practices will be focused on those students who were most impacted by COVID and who would also be at greatest risk in a future emergency. Students from historically underrepresented communities, students from low-income households, and working-age adults looking to get back to school for new skills to change careers. We're also distributing more than $1 million in funding to 11 schools to support their efforts to address food insecurity and hunger among their students. This is being done through our implementation of the Hunger-Free Campus Act, which I signed into law 2 years ago. We know that there are numerous students across our state whose studies are made harder because they do not have the means for stable and nutritious meals. And I think Brian would agree with me, this is a hugely underreported and hugely under-focused on reality in the overall food insecurity landscape. These funds will be leveraged by receiving colleges and universities to create sustainable solutions and strategic partnerships to address their on-campus food needs and raise awareness of available campus services among students who may need a helping hand. As we move forward and eventually fully out, please God, from under the cloud of the pandemic, we must ensure that every student has the tools they will need for success in the workforce of tomorrow.
For New Jersey's latest COVID-19 numbers, the Department of Health has reported another 227 new positive cases today, bringing our statewide total to 895,552. Positivity rate is 1.7% and rate of transmission is 0.95. Sadly, we are also reporting 4 new confirmed deaths, pushing the total to 23,800 COVID fatalities. On the brighter side, the latest total of fully vaccinated individuals in New Jersey is now 5,113,694. To know the latest on New Jersey's vaccination progress, visit covid19.nj.gov/vaccine. And for a quick weather report, Thomas, it's currently cloudy here in New Jersey. It was raining earlier today. It is 79 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius. In Sicklerville, New Jersey, May and Manzano Garzon, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Well, our weather here is about the same as yours, Mayanne, right around that 26 to 28 degree mark. But
that's great. Do you like it?
Yeah, I love it, but we need rain badly. It's just, as I was saying last night, it's as dry as a dog biscuit here. We desperately need rain. Anyway, Mayanne, what is the Opportunity Meets Innovation Challenge all about?
Well, Thomas, it is a competitive grant program to implement best practices and develop sustainable system-wide reforms in the school. So, and to implement these strategies, institutions will be focusing on students who are historically advantaged, like the ones mentioned by Governor Phil Murphy, including underrepresented minorities, low-income students, and working-age adults, because many of these populations, Thomas, were among the hardest hit by the pandemic. Thomas?
Okay, Mayanne, so what will the funding be used for?
Well, through this grant, Thomas, institutions will be able to embark on projects including expanding dual enrollment programs to increase access and eliminate affordability barriers for low-income students. The funding will also expand the wraparound supports to help encourage student retention by addressing the food insecurity or lack of childcare, and also by implementing the free-of-cost bridge program serving first-generation and Pell-eligible students as they transition from high school to college or from virtual to in-person learning. Thomas.
Mayanne, you mentioned food insecurity. I understand there's about $1 million that's been earmarked for the Hunger-Free Campus program. Tell us about that.
Thomas, the 1 million grant, yeah, that's correct. The grant funding will be used to address student hunger. It is to basically to leverage more sustainable solutions to address the basic food needs on campuses, to raise the awareness of currently offered campus services, just again mentioned by Governor Murphy earlier, and to continue building the strategic partnerships at local, state, and national levels. Thomas.
Thanks for the report, Mayanne, and we'll talk to you later at the round table. Still to come, we have stories from Texas and the business desk. This is Eagle News America.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced. not only in the country,
No matter who
but
you vote
also
for,
abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Agila Pilipinas, a one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Agila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Agila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Agila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science, and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to Exchange, our health outdoor
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Thomas Eilidus. Texas, the governor has announced plans to improve the state's power grid. More on that and other news from the state from EBC's Texas Bureau Chief, Jane Kathleen Gregorio.
Thank you, Thomas, and howdy from the Lone Star States. On Tuesday, Governor Greg Abbott sent a letter to members of the Public Utility Commission of Texas, PUC, directing them to take immediate action to improve electric reliability across the state. These directives build upon reforms that were passed during the 87th legislative session to increase power generation capacity and ensure the reliability of the Texas power grid. His letter stated, the objective of these directives is to ensure that all Texans have access to reliable, safe, and affordable power, and this task is achieved in the quickest way possible. Through clear communication, transparency, and implementation of these critical changes, the PUC and ERCOT can regain the public's trust, restore ERCOT's status as a leader in innovation and reliability, and ensure Texans have the reliable electric power they expect and deserve. Today, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT, issued a letter of response to the governor detailing the strategies they have taken to achieve these goals. Those strategies include increasing the amount of electric power generation, purchasing a larger quantity of power reserves, releasing power reserves more quickly to meet customer demand, procuring additional power reserves during uncertain weather forecasts. And in addition, ERCOT will release a plan this week to ensure grid reliability and improve communication. Governor Abbott stated these strategies, combined with the enhanced enforcement tools provided by the Texas legislature, will ensure greater stability and reliability of the Texas electric grid. I work every week with PUC and ERCOT to ensure that Texans have the reliable electric power they expect and deserve. Meanwhile, in other news, the governor hosted a special guest to the Texas State Capitol. Whitney Lavender recently won the Miss Wheelchair Texas 2021 pageant and was welcomed by Governor Greg Abbott on Thursday for a tour of the state capitol. Governor Abbott stated on social media, yesterday I hosted Miss Wheelchair Texas at the governor's office. Next week she participates in the national competition. Miss Wheelchair America and Miss Wheelchair Texas pageants are competitions designed to select the most accomplished and articulate spokeswomen for the millions of disabled Americans. The selected candidate must be able to communicate both the needs and the accomplishments of her constituency to the general public, the business community, and the legislature. Ms. Wheelchair Texas has the opportunity to travel, make public appearances, and conduct radio, print, and television interviews to promote awareness of the need to eliminate architectural and attitudinal barriers, educate Texans on disability issues, and inform the public of the achievements of people with disabilities across our great state. Miss Wheelchair USA 2021 National Competition takes place this week in Northeast Ohio, with Governor Abbott congratulating Whitney Lavender and stating, "Join me in wishing her all the best in bringing the national title to Texas." Meanwhile, I hope you are staying safe there in your part of the country. In Corpus Christi, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Jane Kathleen, I think people take the power grid, which is a crucial part of our infrastructure. I think a lot of people take it for granted. I've got to ask, when was the last time you experienced a long, I'm not talking about the lights off for 20 minutes, but a long power outage?
Well, Thomas, that's a good question. Actually, it was not too long ago, this past February, we dealt with the severe winter freeze of 2021, nicknamed Snowvid 21 or the Snowdemic in Texas. During that time, the power grid could not sustain the demand, and millions of Texans across the state were without electricity. Thomas?
How did you get through that, Jane Kathleen?
Well, Thomas, we were out of electricity in our house for about 5 days. Some people more than that. Some people were out of power for more than a week, maybe a couple of weeks. But fortunately, Thomas, the gas and the water was still working. My house has both electricity and gas, so cooking and heating was still optional. The lights we had to use, though, were candlelight, flashlights, and we had to charge our devices in the car. Thomas?
Makes you want to have some of the old-fashioned stuff like a wind-up radio or a battery radio, so at least you've got a bit of communications capability there. But how does that experience that you went through make you appreciate having power and as I said earlier, not taking it for granted?
Thomas, that's a really good question. I am so appreciative of electricity. For a while, being without power, I felt like I was living in the 1800s and having to resort to candles. And the worst part, or the most devastating part, was not being able to, or being limited in your capacity to communicate with others, like checking on my family members across the state, being connected to my friends, even being connected to Eagle News. We had to rely on charging our devices, through our vehicles. So probably in addition to, not being able to, have, lights or be able to use our electronics, it's mostly feeling cut off from the communication where, we rely so much on internet and the electricity connected to that, Thomas.
You talk about living in the 1800s. Actually, if you think back, it was still in the 1950s. There were many rural areas of the United States, many rural areas of Canada didn't have electricity. The cities did, but you got out in the country, and I still remember going to my grandmother's place. There was no electricity. Nighttime, and it was coal oil lamps, candles, that sort of thing, and that's what you read by, and that's what you lived with. Have you ever thought of emergency power? My last house, this house doesn't have it, but my last house, I actually had a generator that ran on natural gas, and it could power the whole house if need be. Have you ever thought of doing something like that?
Actually, Thomas, yes, we considered it, especially since during the Snowvid 21, our neighbor had a power generator that ran on gas, and his generator was on the entire 2 weeks, and we could hear it grinding away, and he was there comfortable with all of his lights and his refrigerator working. Yeah, that was another thing. Refrigeration is powered by electricity, so we had to use a lot of canned food, and I gave away a lot of my perishable foods. But yeah, that is something definitely to consider for the next future emergency, Thomas.
Thanks for the report, Kathleen. And do stick around. We'll see you at the round table.
Thank you.
Well, the newest travel trend will take us out of this world. And EBC's business reporter, Bobby Soriano, tells us a trip to outer space may not be that far off.
Good evening. U.S. markets have closed. Here are your latest business headlines. On Sunday, history was made as Sir Richard Branson became the first traveler into space via a privately owned company, his own Virgin Galactic. With other privately owned companies such as Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin and Elon Musk's SpaceX right behind him, could your ticket to space come soon? Virgin Galactic plans to start regular commercial operations in early 2022 and is aiming to carry out 400 flights per year from Spaceport America, its base out in New Mexico. Some 600 tickets have already been sold, including to Hollywood celebrities, for prices ranging between $200,000 and $250,000. Tickets are expected to be even more expensive when they go out on sale to the public. Bezos' Blue Origin has yet to announce ticket prices or a date for the start of commercial operations, but a seat for the July 20 flight was sold at auction and the mysterious winner paid $28 million. Now, these prices may seem to be out of reach for you and probably everyone else you know, but that doesn't mean that will always be the case. When commercial air travel first became widely available in the 1950s, it was a privilege only for the very wealthy, with ticket prices between New York and London costing thousands of dollars just for a basic seat after being adjusted for inflation. However, as deregulation of the airline industry in the 70s, coupled with more and more companies competing to make low-cost flight a possibility, this would lead to over 50% of the U.S. population having flown at least once in their lifetime in the early 2000s, up from only 20% back in 1965. Now, it may not seem to be an apples-to-apples comparison, but the economic principles of competition still apply even to the space travel industry. As more companies try to find ways to make space travel affordable and profitable, it can only benefit the consumer, with prices that could eventually come down to the point that all of us will be making that space jump in our lifetime. Markets closed at record highs today, as investors are expecting strong quarterly earnings reports beginning with the financial industry tomorrow. Reporting from New York, Bobby Soriano, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Up next, we have EBC Food, followed by a roundtable. What do you think about using paper bags instead of those single-use plastic ones? You're watching Eagle News America.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision-making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Way to reap what you planted than to put them on your table and enjoy them. For a backyard to table recipe, try this one, jute saluyat leaves adobo. And here's EBC friend Elisa Castro in Raleigh, North Carolina, to show us how it's made.
Hi everyone, from Raleigh, North Carolina. This is Elisa Castro. Today we're going to cook a healthy vegetable dish from my garden. But first, please join me in harvesting my vegetables. Come on. This is my vegetable garden. Mostly I plant Asian vegetables like eggplants, bitter melon, squash, moringa, and a whole lot more. Today, we are going to harvest jute leaves. Jute leaves are also known as cellular. It is an edible leafy vegetable, which is generally flavorful and tender. It is widely found in Asia and Africa, but we can also find a lot here in my garden during summertime. This is a good source of antioxidants like vitamins A, E, and C. It fights colds and flu. It improves digestion and also promotes good skin health. Now that we have our vegetables, we are ready to cook. This dish is called jute leaves adobo. Okay. These are the ingredients that we need for this dish. This is 1/2 cup of water, 1 teaspoon of pepper, a special seasoning, 1 teaspoon, 2 tablespoons of vinegar, 1/4 cup of fish sauce, garlic, onion, and of course the fresh jute leaves. Okay, so we'll put everything together in the pot. Okay, so we'll open this, and then of course water, the water, pepper, garlic, the special seasoning, onion, then the fish sauce. There you go. And the vinegar, we'll put it later on. We need to cook the jute leaves first, okay? So I'll go ahead and put the jute leaves. Then we're gonna wait until this jute leaves cook. It will take about 10 minutes to cook. Okay, it's easy to cook. And then let's wait for 10 minutes because this vegetables is easy to cook. Now let's check the adobo. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, smells good. There you go. Now we'll add the vinegar, okay? Okay. And leave it open for a few minutes. Now it's cooked. It's ready. And now let's transfer this to the serving dish. Now let's taste it. This is it. Very good. So next time, if you see this vegetable, you know how to cook it. From Raleigh, North Carolina, this is Elisa Castro. Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Well, it's World Paper Bag Day, you know. That's celebrated annually on July the 12th. And why would we do that? Well, it's to make people aware of the pollution caused due to plastic and, you know, the serious threat that that plastic and all that plastic waste we throw out poses to the environment. Plastic waste, quite frankly, takes thousands of years to decompose. Paper bags, well, weeks, maybe months, but they're biodegradable. So let's talk sustainability today with our folks around the round table. We've got three of our correspondents here, Mayanne, Mila, and Jane Kathleen. I'm going to ask you right now, are any of you a fan of paper bags, or do you prefer these plastic ones here? Mayanne?
Well, Thomas, I do prefer paper bags because for some reason it just makes you more environment conscious. You know, it's instead of like getting all of these plastic bags from the grocery store. But if you use a paper bag, it just makes you more, okay, I'm doing something good for the environment. So makes you feel better than, using a lot of plastic. So yeah, I do prefer paper bag when going to the grocery store, but I do bring my own eco bags as well.
What say you, Jane Kathleen?
Well, paper bags, you know what? There's something vintage and nostalgic about using paper bags. I remember growing up as an 80s kid, it was mostly paper bags during my generation growing up. But now, although the plastic bags absorb more moisture, especially if you have frozen or wet items, the paper bag, if it doesn't get wet or stained, you can actually reuse it as a gift bag or, especially the ones with handles. I love those. You could use them as a gift bag, or you could use them for your lunch, and or when they're kind of running out of their usability, I will crumple it up into a ball and let my dog play with it for a little bit. But if he starts ripping it up and eating it, then at that point I will throw it away. Thomas?
You're right, they're vintage. I grew up with them. That's what groceries were packed in back when I was a kid, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. Like you said, small bags we reused as lunch bags. Grocery bags, we actually, that was the garbage bag. That was its final use. But you use them for other things as well. But, unfortunately, we live in that convenience society, a throwaway society. I never really liked the plastic bags. I find them really hard to pack properly in when I'm buying groceries, and I find I use more of them, whereas I used to use two big grocery bags. Yeah. Mila, why don't you weigh in on this?
Yes, Thomas. So I'm not really a fan of paper bags not because I don't like them. I love paper bags. It's just that if I have to go on groceries and buy those big items like watermelon or pineapple, I'm afraid to use paper bags because they're not that sturdy. That's why I have reusable bags all the time. And I have this set of reusable bags that I carry with me every time I go to grocery stores. That I've been doing that for almost 10 years now. And I just need to, if they get nasty, I just put them in the washer and they reuse it again. So that's why I kind of like reusable bags versus the paper bags that we've been discussing. But the stores I've been going to, if I don't have my reusable bag, they always give me paper bags as well, which is not bad. So what I do is, let's say I have a gallon of milk, I just carry it. I don't put it on paper bags. I just carry it with me. Or if the watermelon, I put it on the cart, and from the cart, I put it in the trunk of the car. So yeah, there are other ways to do in order to use paper bags.
We got around it years ago, and I like the idea of reusable bags, though. That's a great alternative, and certainly a good alternative for heavier items. And like you were saying, Jane Kathleen, items like produce. You buy a head of lettuce or something. That's kind of gonna. Water and paper just don't mix. There goes your strength. There goes your strength. But I bet you don't know much about the history of paper bags. They go back actually to 1852. That's when an American inventor by the name of Francis Wool invented a paper bag machine to actually manufacture them. Margaret E. Knight, there's a name you probably haven't heard. Well, she was the mother of the grocery bag. She designed another machine that could produce the flat bottom bag. And that was in 1871. And then Charles Stilwell invented a machine that could produce a square bottom bag, but it had the pleated sides, and that would be like the grocery bag we have today. And on. It's they put handles on it, like up here in Canada you call those a shopping bag. I can't remember what the term was in America. Do any of you remember that, the one with the handles?
It's just one kind here, Thomas. It's just all paper bags.
But definitely they're eco-friendly. Do you use them for anything else besides groceries, Mayan?
Well, Thomas, for me, I reuse it a lot. Well, just like with what Kathleen said, as long as it's still reusable, like it still has a life, I do reuse it a lot, like for carrying food or stuff to bring to my destination. I put stuff there and then put in the car and then to my destination. So it's just not groceries. I do use it a lot, carrying my like snacks or just anything that I could put there to bring from one place to another. So it's not like a one-time use here in my household. I really keep them, especially those thick ones from other grocery stores. I really like those. And you mentioned it earlier, I do reuse it also as a gift bag.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Paper bags will help a lot to preserve the environment. But as we leave you tonight, we don't want to forget about all of those out there on the front lines who have helped us through the pandemic. And, I'm talking about our healthcare workers, first responders, essential workers of all types, everyone out there on the front line. Let's show them our appreciation for their work with a round of applause. We appreciate you. And that's today's Eagle News America. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, and truly, we live in interesting times.
Start up your weekday mornings with edutainment, news, and information kasama ang inyong paboritong Net25 shows. Samahan ang inyong paboritong morning barkada sa Pambansang Almusal at 5 a.m. Tatalakayin mga pangunahing balita sa pagtutulungan ng Radyo Agila at Net25. Samahan si